Welcome once again, fellow wanderers. It's me, Aeon, here once again with Eli to talk about Dream Forge. In Dream Forge, you'll have a variety of skills you'll be asked to call upon when engaging in activities and exploring the lands of Drakkar and beyond. There are quite a lot of skills to choose from and a lot of potential to build upon. Advanced specializations and advanced skills you'll learn as you explore and grow in power in your adventures. In today's video, we plan on going over the core traits and skills within Dream Forge, discussing your various options for them, and how you'll go about choosing them when you make your Wanderer. Though, before we begin, let's do a little plug for our channel. Real quick, before we begin the video proper, I just want to remind everyone to subscribe to the channel and like the video as it helps us reach more people and grow the community, as well as comment your thoughts about what we're discussing in the video and your thoughts on Dream Forge in general. Also, don't forget to check out our Discord channel if you want to try out the experience for yourself and join the community there. We have a lot of things to cover in this video, so without further ado, let's get into it. Traits in Dream Forge represent a creature's core stats, or abilities, across 8 categories: Vitality, Agility, Vigor, Cognition, Resourcefulness, Will, Astuteness, and Allure. Vitality represents the overall physical strength of a creature. Agility represents a creature's physical swiftness and reflexes. Vigor represents a creature's healthiness as well as its resilience to toxins in the environment. Cognition correlates to a creature's mental fortitude when it comes to understanding both the mystical and non-mystical. Resourcefulness is a representation of a creature's general ability to problem solve, adapt, and inspect a situation. Will denotes a creature's spiritual resistance against soul tampering effects and tenacity of their soul energy in general. Astuteness correlates to how wise and adjusted a creature is, including their general sociability. And lastly, Allure is the general persuasiveness, invitingness, and otherwise a creature has. These core traits, or stats as they're commonly called, will be important as they dictate your bonuses for abilities, features, skills, and more. Speaking of skills, let's talk about what those are.
Skills in Dream Forge represent what a character, creature, or possibly an object's particular ability to do a specific thing. Skills are tied to a core trait they receive their primary bonus from, as well as bonuses from various feats and abilities, along with skill points that you gain as you level up. Later, we'll go through most of the current skills in Dream Forge, but as an example, the Vigor Fortitude skill is your ability to resist certain toxins and general resilience and stamina. Lastly, another aspect that will come up often, especially in combat, is saving throws. Saving throws, or saves as they're referred to shorthand, are a more generalized showing of your resilience to a particular spell or effect for a given core trait. Classes and certain abilities and lineage features allow you to add your verse bonus to them outside of the modifier derived from the score, which we'll talk about shortly.
When making your Wanderer character, your traits and skills will be instrumental in determining where you specialize. Normally, we recommend choosing your lineage and class before you go into your trait scores and skill decisions, as they inform you on what you might want to probably prioritize. You'll begin by determining your trait scores, and there are 2 ways to do so. One, which is kind of the default, and also just by the by, kind of the one that everyone ends up using anyway, called point buy, and the other one is rolled stats. In point buy, you are granted 30 points to add to your trait scores, which each begin at 10. You cannot put more in a skill than what would get you 16 score, which is effectively 9 points. And by that same metric, you cannot go lower than an 8 score, which grants you an additional 2 points you could use on another skill. There is a table that is important for seeing the point cost of certain score amounts, but the long and short of it is that anything from 10 to 13 costs 1 point, and anything from 14 to 16 costs 2 points. The other way, as mentioned, for determining your trait score is rolling your stats. In this situation, you'll usually roll a 4d6, or 4 6-sided die, and drop the lowest number you have out of those 4 dice for each core trait. If your DM permits, you can also re-roll a set of those, though we usually advise a rule that says when you re-roll, you must take whatever the new roll is, and you can only re-roll twice for each core trait. This is just to keep things fair, though. Obviously, if you want to do different things, that's up to you and your DM. This option is definitely the more chaotic approach, we'll say, and some people enjoy using it over the other one. However, it seems that from what we've gathered, most people prefer the point buy system over the rolling stats. There is a benefit as well to rolling higher stats, as the chance of getting higher stats is often higher, or there's a chance of getting a higher stat than you could normally through point buy default. However, there's also equally just as bad of a chance of you getting a stat so bad you're contemplating taking a dive out of a plane without a parachute. From there, the next part is adding up your core traits. Now that you've chosen your trait scores, you'll want to record the first level numbers on your first page of your character sheet in the marked section. Then you'll want to add any bonuses to your trait scores that you may receive from your lineage, background, and feat choices. Once you've done that, you'll have your core trait scores. However, you'll need to use the trait modifier table in the skill and trait section in the guide to determine your modifiers. The simplified version of this is starting at 10, you are at +0 for the modifier for a trait. At every even interval after 10, such as 12 or 14, your modifier will increase by +1, while going backwards in intervals, like 8 or 6 from 10, will be effectively a -1 for that core trait. Once you determine the modifiers for all your traits, record them on your Wanderer's character sheet in the core traits table on the first page. Upon doing this, you have determined your core traits and their modifiers, at least as of level 1. You'll need to note the modifiers for the next section, however, as you have your skill table to contend with. Real quick, before you go into the table proper, you'll need to determine if you want to be versed in a given skill. You will record all your skills you choose on the skill table in the column designated, versed at the top. You can choose what skills you want to be versed in via your class, background, and sometimes are even given some via your lineage and feat choices. Bold the skills that you want on your character sheet when you have recorded all the other information from your class and lineage and such, and record them on your skill table as mentioned before. Once you have done this, now you can determine your skill points for the skill table. Skill points are used to increase your respective skills as you explore and grow in power. You are granted an initial amount of skill points equal to your verse bonus plus your modifier for your class skill trait, times 4. Or each class has its own skill modifier that you'll see on its class information. You'll want to consider whatever this class skill is when you're determining what you want to put in your trait scores initially as well, because it'll be important for this. You will receive more skill points every 2 levels after the first level, so basically every odd level, and the equation for this is your verse bonus plus your modifier for your class skill trait. This means that as you increase in level, you should expect your verse bonus to increase as well, which will increase the amount of skill points you're getting from these intervals. Also, make sure you remember these important facts about skill points real quick. The amount of skill points you may add to a given skill within the skill point column is equal to your character level plus 3. This number can be exceeded via certain boons, feats, and abilities purchased, and when that occurs, the skill points added are refunded for the expended points. The second thing is when you put skill points into a skill that you are not considered versed in, that skill point or those skill points are only worth half a skill point, effectively. That means that you'll need to put 2 skill points in to get a +1 bonus out of that. The last thing to determine is your skill modifier, and it is easily determined by adding together the things along the row for a given skill. This is your trait modifier, your verse bonus if you are versed in that skill, any skill points added to the skill, and any miscellaneous or circumstantial bonuses added to it. Things like training and other stuff that can add to it potentially, which we'll get into in another video. Once you have that, you know exactly the amount you should put in the skill modifier for that skill, and record them all on your skill table after that. Now that you've done all this, you've completed your core traits and skills section for your character. And now you get to the fun part, which is what do you use these skill modifiers and the like for?
Over your adventures in Dream Forge, you'll be challenged in many ways, requiring a specific skill to meet them. When these challenges or problems on your journey occur, you may be asked by the DM or other forces to make a specific skill, check, or saving throw. You will need to check your skill table or saving throw table on your character sheet. Once you find this section, you will need to determine the total modifier added to what you're rolling. For skills, this is your skill modifier. Restating from earlier, that is given by your trait modifier, your verse bonus if you're versed in the skill, any skill points added to the skill, and any miscellaneous or circumstantial bonuses added to it. For saving throws, you will simply add your trait modifier, your verse bonus if you are versed in the skill, and any miscellaneous or circumstantial bonuses added to determine your saving throw modifier. Now that you have either, when asked to roll, you will roll a d20. Once rolled, you will add the appropriate modifiers to the check or save, and that will determine if you succeed or fail in the situation you are faced with and accomplish the action you are attempting. We've explained skills and how you'll go about choosing them. Let's go through the list of all the skills as we provide a brief explanation. Towards the end, we'll also bring up special skills, mainly advanced skills and profession skills, and elaborate a bit more on them. For vitality, let's first look at fitness. This is your general ability to utilize your physical prowess and strength. It is often used when pushing, pulling, or otherwise moving physical objects, swimming or moving against the current of water or the flow of wind. Next we have grapple, your ability to grip onto an object or creature. This is simply used when you're trying to grapple a creature or hold onto an object. Next, let's look at the agility skills. The first one we'll look at is Agile Hands. This ability measures your hand-eye coordination or aptitude with your hands, which allow you to do tricks and other associated hand gestures or tasks. You may use this skill if you're attempting to pickpocket or swipe an item stealthily without being seen, or to beguile creatures with misleading somatic components. Next we have Deftness. This is your acrobatic ability and general skillfulness at movement. Following that, we have Stealth. This is how well you hide or sneakily maneuver through an area. You will often use this skill both in and out of combat in various ways to determine how well you can keep silent. Now let's look at the Vigor skills. First we'll look at Concentration. This is your ability to focus and collect your thoughts or mentally hang onto a spell or spell-like effect. Many spells with more powerful or world-altering effects require concentration to keep them sustained. Up next is Exposure. This is your tolerance to harmful environmental effects and similar outward effects, often used when you traverse or reside in extreme heat or extreme cold and you're trying to avoid fatigue or exhaustion. Then there's Fortitude, which we mentioned earlier. This is your tolerance to harmful toxins and other nauseous effects such as thick smoke and heat. This is also brought up when you're going on a long time without rest or consuming alcohol or holding your breath. This next one is very important for combat. It's Injury. This is your ability to resist being minorly or severely injured from certain attacks or effects. Being knocked unconscious will often have you making a check associated with avoiding injury. When you're brought to 0 HP, you will make a Vigor injury check to determine if you've been injured. Lastly, we have Instinctual. This is how to tune in with your innate traits and your general survivability and instincts. These are things which may correspond to your ideals, personality traits, or instincts to act.
Knowledge Soul Energy is your ability to identify magical effects of a variety of domains of magic. These effects can include things like mystical, divine, and arcane effects, and also this is used when observing strange magical anomalies which occur in the places you go. Knowledge Faith is your knowledge about the many religions, cults, gods, and goddesses or traditions associated with religious practices and such. Knowledge Planes and Planets is your knowledge about the plane or world of your intrigue. It can also be helpful for detecting anomalous effects on a plane or planet. And the last cognition skill is Recollection. Recollection has a lot of things attached to it, generally speaking the knowledge of grander things in the world, such as war, creations of cities and factions, main events, and history and such. However, generally speaking, it's just your ability to recall events and effects. Now with resourcefulness skills, appraisal is your ability to tell how much something is worth in general, or possibly even tell you who could be interested in it. This skill can also be somewhat helpful in determining if something's been tampered with or not. Crafting is your ability to create generalized things, potentially repair things like a de-stringed bow or a broken sword. It can even help in being partially used for the creation of certain profession items, though it is limited in that front. Inspection is your ability to examine or search an area. For instance, after a fight, you might be attempting to find materials in a given confined space, or potentially look for hidden pathways or traps around the area. Knowledge Bestiary is your ability to garner information about a creature or recognize information about creatures and their natural habitats, the basis of abominations, beasts, and other creatures as such. Knowledge Engineering is your ability to understand and be knowledgeable of artifacts, structures, and engineered devices in general. This also helps with disarming devices of a mechanical nature such as traps sometimes. Knowledge Technological is about the study or analytical sides of technology, allowing you to gain insights into the digital space and works outside of the arcane. This is also used when attempting to access terminals, databases, and devices of a technological nature. And lastly, for resourcefulness, we have Logic, a diplomacy-based skill which focuses on your ability to use rationale and inquiry to converse or convince others with a well-fashioned argument. On to Will, we have Animal Handling to begin with. Animal handling is used to try to soothe or otherwise calm or interact with certain types of beasts and other creatures. This can also be used in instances where you are trying to manage a creature's temperament. Next, we have energy concealment, which is your ability to mask your own powers of spiritual energy or mystical attributes. Oftentimes, this is used to keep creatures from sensing you out if you're in a given area with certain types of divination magic or detection based soul energy sensings. Then we have soul sensing, which is your ability to read and sense the spiritual pressure or otherwise powers of another creature, item, or an area. This is often done when trying to find a creature that is hidden to the naked eye or approximate a creature's spiritual capabilities in reference to your own abilities or others. And lastly, we have sanity, which is your ability to keep your mental fortitude and resist harmful mental stimuli and effects from a foreign nature from both outside and inside oneself. Onto astuteness skills, we have awareness, which is your ability to perceive or spot creatures and effects happening with your physical senses, basically your eyes, your nose, hearing, etc. This also helps with charting paths in dangerous areas, tracking creatures, and spotting unknown assailants. Knowledge local regal, which is your knowledge of the current local area, current events associated with it, and other information generally of a local nature around the area. Next we have knowledge nature geography, which is your knowledge of the environment, creatures, plants, and effects native to the environment. This also helps with navigating things like caves and natural dungeons, generally alluding to the danger, both monstrous and non, that reside within. After that we have medicine, which is the ability to provide first aid to a dying or injured individual or creature, and ascertain certain physical or other abnormalities about a creature, possibly poisons, diseases, and other types of things in their system. After that, we have mood, which is your ability to sense motives, attitude, and detect bizarre posture shifts or mannerisms that might allude to an individual's forthrightedness. Then we have scavenging, your ability to gather materials and items within the natural environment, or potentially carving and assorting from different creatures. And lastly, for astuteness, we have sympathy, which is a diplomacy-based skill which focuses on your ability to appeal to someone's emotions or sensibilities to sway or otherwise convince them to your side. Now onto the last trait, we have allure skills. First up, we have charm, a diplomacy-based skill which focuses on your general alluring nature and ability to persuade using your appealing characteristics. When you chat to pass the time, make a joke that's sly, or use your body language and general assuredness and confidence of oneself to convince others. Next, we have glare, another form of diplomacy-based skill which uses your ability to use aggression and threats, or showcase one's menacing nature, to impose on and influence others around you. After that, we have misdirect, which is your ability to mislead or beguile something, possibly deceiving them or others through ambiguity or outright lying.
Now let's look at the allure skills. First we have charm. This is a diplomacy-based skill which focuses on your general alluring nature and ability to persuade using your appealing characteristics, like when you chat to pass the time or make a joke that's sly or vicarious. You are not just using your voice, but body language and general sureness of oneself. Next we have the glare skill. This is a form of diplomacy which uses your ability to use aggression, threats, or showcase yourself as a menacing and imposing figure to influence others. Finally, we have misdirect. This is your ability to mislead or beguile, encompassing everything from deceiving others through ambiguity to outright lying. This extends past verbal conversations to physical disguises and tricks. With all that out of the way, let's look at some of the advanced skills and how they work. Advanced skills are a set of special skills which sometimes can replace multiple skills or give access to entirely new types of insights which would otherwise not have been gleaned without it. In the former case, we have the endurance skill, which is understood as how quickly you physically recover from overexertion through running, swimming, or flying using your own body. You can additionally use this skill in place of the vitality fitness checks and for specific vigor fortitude checks, which relate to your associated situations in which you go too long doing physical activity without rest in short or long bursts, like running across the field for several minutes, giving chase to something, or also not sleeping for a while. By comparison, you have the tracking skill, which is often used in questing to more easily find creature signs over knowledge nature geography, and can also be used in its place. Another example is the hacking skill, which is your ability to interact with devices of an ancient or scientific category, and is often used in place of knowledge technological for checks pertaining to accessing databases, terminals, or otherwise programmable or digital equipment. Now let's look at our profession skills. Profession skills, on the other hand, are skills which are used predominantly whenever engaging in professional activities, like enchanting, constructing, smithing, or scale shaping. As an example, we have the smithing skill, which is used when fabricating items and materials via forging. Meanwhile, the scale shaping skill can be used for carving monster parts in place of the scavenger skill, or shaping monster gear into equipment.
Alright, that was our look at traits and skills for Dreamforge. We hope it was insightful and helpful for your character creation process, and informative in general for those of you that are just coming by to say hello and see what Dreamforge is all about. We hope to see you in the next video, and we'll give our closing right here. We'd like to thank you all for watching the video and remind you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share us around as we are looking to grow the community. It would help us a great deal if you followed our Kickstarter page and checked out our Linktree, where you can see our art and various updates on our Twitter, Insta, and Blue Sky. If you want to try the game out for yourselves, or just stop by and say hi, join our official Discord, linked in the description box below. We hope to see you in the future, and again, thank you for all for watching, and see you wanderers